one, which is the set-in sleeve. So this one, again, it's French at the shoulder first. So you're going to take the two bodice pieces, and the first thing you're going to do is a French seam at the shoulder, which means we have to start off with wrong sides touching. So I'm going to match up the edges, and I'm going to already start into the fabric. Let's get it under the foot. I'm going to drop the needle. We're doing shoulder first. And then I'm going to backstitch to the end of my fabric, and then I'm going to hold the two tails to help it back out. Don't pull on your chiffon. You see, I have such a temptation to pull this forward to straighten it out. But if you do that, you're causing like a bias or a stretch. So you don't want to pull it. You want to pat it down. So do you see, I'm trying really hard not to pull it. If you pull it, you're going to end up getting ripples up and down the shoulder. So you want to just pat it down, back stitch, or decrease your stitch length at the end. And you know, what a great opportunity to try all the techniques, like even how you're saying. Why not try it on the sample, like one here and one there. Okay, that was just 1/4 of an inch. That's step one. Now I have to go in and trim off 1/8 of an inch, or 1/16 of an inch, I should say. 1/16. Just cut the edge off.
We don't trim for the dart, do we?
For the dart, for the French dart, for the legs, you wanted to trim away the little fuzziness. I guess if you want to trim off 1/16, it's safe to do so. That will be fine, yeah, and that'll keep it consistent, so yes. Okay, now I would get up an iron, and now I would flip it to be wrong sides touching, and now I'm going to sew another 1/4 of an inch. So this is step 2 of the French. And again, you want it to be under the foot. Make sure you have the tails. And you want to make sure your seam is balanced. And I have to say, these industrials work really well with these thin chiffon fabrics. I think I get a lot of people that are worried about sewing these chiffons or even lace, and I have to say that it is way better to sew lace, chiffons, and all these airy fabrics on an industrial, because you have a bigger feed dog, and it's a more stable machine. So, you know, you don't want to sew these at home. Okay, so I've got my first shoulder seam, right? And make sure, oh, thank goodness, this one's better. So now what I'm going to do, and I know this is going to be very different from anything we've done before.
Ooh, I was hoping for this. I was hoping.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we are going, can everyone see? I don't know how to do this in the air. I need one of those like head cams.
GoPro.
Yeah. So here's the double notch means the back, single notch means the front. Okay, do you see how I did the shoulder seam? I'm going to inset this like this, and then I'm going to sew up the arm and side seam all at once. Okay. I know, this is weird. They shouldn't write set in sleeve on there, by the way.
Right.
But we're doing sleeve. Okay, anyhow. So, again, shoulder seam first.
Lay it out.
Now, I want to insert the sleeve cap into this hole like this. It's going to click in like this. Open. I have not closed the side seams. Can you see that?
And you said set in, so that means...
I know.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just meaning like you're placing it in there. So
Yeah.
are right sides touching, wrong sides touching?
Because it's French, so we're going to start off with wrong side touch. Okay, since I have to have this cap in there, I'm going to add a basting stitch.
Right.
So I changed it to 5, and I always baste from notch to notch. So from the single notch to the double notch, just to get a long basting stitch in. Yes, sleeve cap baste along the edge. I dropped it to 5. Let me go back. Okay, so then you're going to take the basting, just so this should be familiar, and just get it really bunched up like this. And okay, so now let's look at this. So I've got my shoulder here, right? And this is my single notch and my double notch. Oh, I guess we don't have a front and back, do we? Is there
Yeah, there's
front
a
and
front,
back?
and there is a front, and there is a back.
Oh,
piece.
excellent. Okay, use those. That's so much better because then you'll have notches. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, do you see how I'm going to set this in? But since this is French technique, I need to start off with wrong sides touching. So this is where people get messed up, because do you see here how this French seam is all pretty and finished?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm about to sew with this. Make sure that you're following the seam direction where you want it to go towards the back of the body.
Okay, so when you are sewing that down, it goes towards the back.
It goes towards the back. Yeah. So all your seams will go towards the back. Down or back. Okay. So I didn't know there was a front and back seam, so I'm going to actually make a front by cutting away my 3/8. There. Now I have a front and a back. So my front bodice is always cut 3/8 of an inch more than my back. So there. Okay, so that's my front notch. That's my double back notch. And you've got to have this midway notch, which I swore I put in here. Where are you? Here it is. So since that's my back now, I'm going to iron it towards the back, and I'm going to pin the center. Get that one secured first. So I've got that pinned. Now I'm going to pin the beginning. So see how I'm finding the ends here? So pin the beginning, and then I'm going to pin the end. So yes, this technique you will be doing on your actual shirt. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, now that I have it pinned, you see how
This is open.
how I have, you know how I have it so crinkled? So now you can start releasing some of this and even it out. That's why I always like to have it really bunched up, because then it almost makes it easier. Do you see how now I can clearly see that it'll fit in there? And same here. So you see how you can kind of expand it out? Yeah, it works really well. This one, probably scooch it over a little bit more.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So, so I think in our lesson in the video, she has the sleeve facing the feed dog on the sewing machine, and she has the shirt pointing out. Okay, so I'm going to start with 1/4 of an inch, because remember, this is 2 seams, or 2 stitches. So I'm going to start and then back stitch to the end, and then hold the tail to help it out, because remember, it's very thin. Okay, so do you see how it's kind of creating like this cup or bowl from the gathering we have here? So here, what I need to do is I need to concentrate and look for 2 cut edges at all times as you're trying to maintain that 3-dimensional shape. So you can definitely pin this. You can put more pins. Okay, so here I'm coming into the actual sleeve.
Do you need your stiletto?
No,
Okay.
I'm just gonna. What I like to do is, do you see how I'm pull the fabric? Do you see how this piece is extending past my seam? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and I'm going to pull the fabric back in place. See how it moved back?
Mhm.
So I don't actually need to pin it. It'll just sit where I need it to be. So as you sew, you can move the chiffon around. But I need to wait till I get to, there we go. Okay, and then remember to sew in bursts, and then make sure that you have your needle in every time, needle pointing down every time that you stop. Yep. Okay, so this is the part where people end up having, oops, let me get this out of the way, where people end up having a lot of puckers. Well, here's the good news. This is just the first seam. So you can usually hide a few puckers inside. Try not to do it though. If you find that you're going to have a pucker, you could jump over it with your needle, then it will press out. So I actually did the set in the round on our chiffon sample. I don't think we're doing that option.
For the shirt.
Yeah, this one is a lot more manageable.
That's sad.
You know, I think we had a couple students do, when you know how when we're gonna buddy cut, we have a lot of layers of chiffon. So if you want to add an extra chiffon layer in there, you are welcome to do so. And then you could try the set-in technique, and I'm happy to work with you to get that. Because it is doable. It's a little like more fiddly, I suppose, to get it. Okay, so here we go again. So do you see how I have more fabric on the bottom than the top? So rather than sew it and cut it off, because I guess your teacher would never know, right? Look what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pull the fabric, pull it underneath so that your edges match up. So you want to keep,
What do you mean?
so do you see here, I just want to get these edges to line up, these cut edges. So if I have to pull from the bottom of the fabric or pull the top, here, this way I'll push the top edge. You can either pull the fabric from underneath or push the fabric on top over. And it'll help line up your edges. All right, almost done. And then go out to the edge. Okay, back stitch. Okay, that's just one part of it.
1/4.
Yep, that's just a quarter. Okay, so now we have to trim away our 16th. And you can cut away all the excess threads so they don't end up getting in the way. And then here, again, if you have any little mistakes, you know, this is your opportunity to clean it up. You definitely don't want to skip this step. You need to cut very neat. Don't cut jagged edges because it's chiffon, so we'll actually see it. You know, over the break I was prepping the chiffon set-in sleeve sample, and I tried so many times, like, I need to do this faster, but I don't know how to do this faster, so I'm sorry it's taking so long. But maybe this could be like a signal to all of you that this takes time. I definitely would not put this off. I would try to get this one done. But this is one you definitely need to like set aside time to do. And also in terms of the shirt, tap the seam allowance to one direction. Now I'm going to turn it right sides touching. And now can you see my previous seam? It's confusing, isn't it? Yeah. So now I'm just going to go through and sew a 1/4 inch straight stitch. And this time it's much easier because you've already stabilized. Okay, so here, back stitch to the end. All right, and then now all I'm doing is lining up my previous seam. You want it to be centered. I'll just do half and I'll come show you at the table so you don't have to sit there and watch me sew this whole thing. Okay, so again I'm pulling on the seams.